Finally, you can't do this by yourself. In the end, we need to have much smarter, much more strategic national and state policies. And I just want to back up for 1 second, because we're going to have an election in this country next year, which is the first time since 1952 where neither party will have an incumbent on the top of their ticket, which means that we're going to have a competition for ideas between, on one hand, Obama and Clinton and Edwards and the others running, and on the other hand, Giuliani, Romney, McCain, and perhaps people like Chuck Hagel. We are going to have a true competition for ideas in the 2008 presidential election that I think are going to have a dramatic effect on our nation's ability to compete and achieve environmental and social objectives. As we do so, the Kansas City Metro needs to understand that, like another 40 or 50 metropolitan areas in the United States, you drive and you dominate our national economy. The top 100 metros in the United States, and you're one of them, you have only 12% of the land mass, you have more than 2/3 of our population, you have 75% of our most educated citizens, and you have 80 to 85% of our immigrants. You are the leading edges of all the sectors of the economy that this nation needs to compete in, whether it's finance, business, professional services, technology. You're the ports of entry, you're the centers of knowledge and innovation. If this country is going to compete, this metro and the other top metros need to be healthy and vital. And therefore, we've got to have a set of national and, I would say, state policies that basically enable these metros to realize their full economic potential and respond to the challenges that they now face. At Brookings, in a collaboration with a series of business leaders and political leaders and community leaders, we are coming up with what we call a blueprint for national prosperity that would identify the key national policies that give metro areas the rules and the tools they need to build on your economic strengths, grow in environmentally sustainable ways, and build a strong middle class. We have already produced a paper on housing policy. I was Chief of Staff to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, and I shudder to remember that. It was worse than getting stuck in Dallas Airport yesterday. I think federal housing policy is completely broken, and I felt that when I was there. And luckily, in Henry Cisneros, we had a leader to begin to take the steps to rewrite what was a fundamentally broken system. But we need to shift at the national level, more housing decision-making to metros and regions, away from parochial local governments. We need to put more tools on the table, not just the low-income housing tax credit, but a tax credit perhaps that would enable the private sector to catalyze the production of housing for moderate and middle-income families, close to transit corridors, in smart and sustainable ways. And as Tim really, I think, alluded to, we've got to look very carefully at the incomes and wages of the bottom 30 or 40% of our workforce, because those incomes and wages in a global economy are not sufficient to make ends meet and afford housing and transportation costs. We call for a fairly substantial increase in something called the Earned Income Tax Credit, because we fundamentally believe if you work in the United States, you should not be poor. Only the federal government really has the fiscal wherewithal, smartly, strategically, to basically make these connections between different sets of policies and to supplement the incomes of tens of millions of working Americans. Here's the bottom line at the end of the day. I think you have an incredible opportunity to affect your own destiny going forward. There is no doubt in my mind that this is a great place to live and work and raise children, and it is a place with enormous assets. And I think this is a region that could become one of the leading cities and metropolitan areas of the next century, a really world-class region in the heartland of our country. But I think you're going to need to deal with some issues, not in isolation, but in an integrated and unified way, particularly housing, transportation, land use, and economic development, if you're going to achieve your full potential. That means new coalitions, like the Housing Choices Coalitions. It needs talking to the citizenry in ways that they can sort of understand and respond to. And I think it means working across borders, both parochial borders and state borders, so you can achieve your full greatness. Thank you very much for inviting me here today, and I appreciate your patience.